Welcome, my friends and enemies. Glad you are here. We got a new setup, and it's going to look a little funky, but please bear with us. Be gentle. It's not the normal setup we have through StreamYards. We finally got rid of it, and I'm not sure what I'm doing at the moment. So, I'm joined again with both Matt and Sage, and we're looking at Tom Bombadil. Why don't you guys say hi?
Hi, but are we looking at Tom Bombadil though? I'm not so sure.
Well, we're looking at a
Tom
white guy.
Bombadil.
We're looking at a white guy, not Tom Bombadil.
I mean, he might as well be a white dude. Don't you know that you can have white roots come out of the ground? You know, earth-based stuff. But
So let me say up front, so the audience knows, I got the Token Gateway open, and this is what Tom is supposed to look like, right? His face was creased and red as a ripe apple, with bright blue and bright eyes. His hands were brown skinned. So the one legitimate character you can get a non-white guy to play, right?
Yeah, you
Make
just
it
need to
a
find the
white
red guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, technically, some American Indians have reddish tinted skin.
Yeah,
or
but it's
whatever,
that
you know.
apple.
well,
color.
maybe
I
the
know.
part above his eyes and his nose, like this entire piece here, could be like red, and it's the shadows just hiding it from us.
But the point I'm making is these so-called woke purists, the cultists of we have to
Woke
diversify.
purist is an oxymoron.
Exactly, right? The woke cultist purists with their master woke diversity. What made a white guy? Made one character who legitimately would be non-white. It's a white guy. Oh
Just
man,
impossible.
sorry.
I'm
That's
actually
demonstrating who the real racists are.
But yeah, we are in the middle of a testing period, so we're trying to make sure that we're not peaking. So if we are too loud, I do apologize. I am trying to adjust things on the back end as we go. So, but yes, we have this wonderful article from Vanity Fair because, top tier journalism in Vanity Fair, Isn't Vanity Fair like originally like a fashion magazine?
I don't remember. I only look at it occasionally if articles related to stuff I like.
I just
Every
every time
I
I've
don't
gone to
know.
every time I've gone to like a doctor's office, it's been like a Vanity Fair, and it just has like a woman on it holding flowers or something, and
I
then
always thought it was a woman's
talking about
magazine,
fashion.
like
What it
Elle
is?
or all that sort of stuff.
Maybe it's like the female version of GQ or something. I don't know. But yeah, Vanity Fair. Tom Bombadil finally steps forth in the Rings of Power, an exclusive first look. Because it's always Vanity Fair for some reason. Like, why Amazon uses Vanity Fair? I don't know. J.R.R.
Wait, so
Tolkien's...
this is confirmed Tom Bombadil?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, I thought that was just what we.
No.
Well,
were
I
led to
mean, it's
assume.
probably really Ron Bombadil.
When Ronald Bombadil or Bombadil. Yeah. I can't even say it without tongue twisting myself. But when Rings of Power season 1 came out, Vanity Fair had the first look exclusive as well. So that's kind of where it goes, I guess, for some reason. But J.R.R. Tolkien's peculiar Lord of the Rings character, excluded by other adaptations, comes to life on the Amazon series. Does it, though? This is our first look at it. We got Tom Bombadil with the Stranger, a.k.a. Gandalf, even though I don't know is there any knowledge of them ever actually meeting each other?
Well, I mean, they know of each other clearly because they
yeah.
talked, right? So,
Well, they're talking in this, yes,
I mean,
but I meant like in the
Gandalf's
books.
been
well,
around forever, so maybe
Yeah, but doesn't mean he's been
went
to every
there
little
at some
square
point.
inch of Middle Earth.
No, but we know he hangs around in the Shire, and Tom Bombadil is also there. So
Gandalf was in Middle Earth early during the First Age.
It's not entirely unreasonable that they.
Yeah, but Tom Bombadil's been there since the beginning.
He was the first being in the universe.
Besides Eru.
So that was Eru.
No, he's outside the universe.
Okay, fair enough.
Glorfindel literally calls him the first and the fatherless. So he was the first.
How would
living
Glorfindel know? It's an unreliable narrator, good sir.
Wait a moment. But how did he get in there if Eru created it?
Well, here's the thing, and this is from Tolkien. So
here's
Tolkien
the thing.
says,
Tolkien doesn't know.
no, he knows, but Tolkien said in his letters, he has given all the clues we need to deduce who Tom Bombadil is in the writing. However, he will never reveal specifically who he is. He's supposed to be a mystery, and he and Goldberry are sort of a representation of certain timeless things that cannot be changed until everything else is changed.
So the short answer is Tom Bombadil is Arda.
Well, you know,
Well, look at the coloring of his hands and stuff. Like he has got the earthy type thing. He loves nature. Nature responds to him. He's untouchable to basically anything else. Nothing of magical interference would have effect on him. Like him putting the ring on his pinky or something isn't going to do anything. It's not going to notify Sauron. It's not going to freaking do anything.
In Norse mythology and lore, there are several classes of being, right? And Tolkien drew from the Norse mythology with this stuff, right? And obviously there were the humanoid beings like men and elves, for example, but then there are the giants, right? But they're also nature spirits who are a part of the land. And Bombadil clearly is drawn in some respects from that, right? So he could arguably, I mean, again, we won't know because Tolkien said he's never going to, and Christopher adhered to that. He would never release that, and it's not written down anywhere. So now they're dead. They're not just going to publish that. Oh, Tom Bombadil is, this guy or whatever. So we can conjecture a lot of things.
This guy.
I mean, to me, as long as the character is timeless and has no desire for anything, you know what I mean? The nature of the character is he doesn't desire material possessions because he's part of nature. He didn't balance.
Well, he does desire material things. He desires the feather in his cap,
but not in the way like we would desire stuff like that. In other words,
yes.
If he doesn't have the feather, he's not gonna like go and say, "I have to have that feather. I'm gonna kill you for it." He's yeah. He might just go get another one. He might just wait until the feather blows off your hat someday and pick it up again, or I mean, his desire.
He needs his Frosty the Snowman hat.
His desire is of.
That's how he stays alive.
Okay. So Elrond was talking. They were talking about giving him the ring because he could protect from anything, even Sauron, until Sauron corrupted the entire of the earth, right? So,
yeah.
But he said
when he did.
No. He said once the entirety of everything falls, then even Tom would fall because, in theory, they're saying that Tom would either cease to have an interest in the corrupted earth, or maybe he would just leave or whatever, or that would break his link to it, so to speak. But the thing he said is Tom would if he, I'm paraphrasing, he might desire the ring briefly as a curiosity, but he would desire it as something he would keep. It can give him nothing. Remember, the key about the ring.
It can't tempt him into doing anything. It's just he would like, oh, this is kind of cool. Stick it on his finger.
It has nothing. There's nothing in him to be tempted by anything the ring could, by anything.
Yeah.
So,
and it wouldn't have any effect on him either. So.
Yeah. So remember, he would have been there on the earth, on Arda, before Aule even shaped it when it was a shapeless mass of material. Right.
What would happen if, like, the Witch King or one of the Nazgul stabbed him with a Morgul blade? Would anything happen?
Best guess, nothing. But who knows?
I don't think anything can happen to him. I don't think he can be harmed conventionally.
Does he have a spirit, or is he just him?
Well, everything sapient has a spirit.
Well, yes, but if he's just the living representation of the Earth, aka Arda, well, why would the Earth / Arda have a spirit?
Everything, by definition, anything sapient. So
is the Earth sapient though?
No, but
he could be just an avatar.
But see, he's not. Again, you're forming a formal conclusion. There is no. Like Tolkien, there's no way to confirm.
I'm going to a rational, reasonable possibility. That's all I'm doing.
No, but what I'm saying is,
if the Earth can create an avatar, aka what Aule did to the dwarf and fathers, before they had a spirit. They were still an avatar, but they didn't have a spirit, but they could be formed into a being. But then the earth itself just forms itself and it just is conscious of that form at all times. Does it have a spirit? Or
So
is it
Tom,
just a
okay,
constant
so
creation?
Tom exists before even that. Tom said he existed before the Dark Lord came from the outside. So he was literally the first sapient being in the universe.
What about Ungolians?
I'm
The
pretty
watcher in
sure.
the water.
Now, the interesting thing, Ungoliant technically could be the same sort of being that Tom is, but from later. Because remember, when they were talking about the Balrog, there were the other, what were they called? The formless, shapeless things beneath the earth. Do you remember that, Sage?
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there, and again, I think all that's drawn from these nature spirits, and conceptually from the nature spirits in Norse and Germanic mythology, right? So
Could be.
that makes sense to me, right? So I mean, I with Tom, it's a very difficult thing. Like, well, for example, like you were saying, what if he's the manifestation of nature or whatever? Well, if that doesn't work out, then he can't be that. You know what I mean? Like if he is the manifestation of nature, let's say, right? But and then we get to a point where something else can't then be true because he's the manifestation of nature. Then he can't be the manifestation of nature. He has to be something else, right? So. And since Tolkien, he's a deliberate mystery, right? That Tolkien
Well,
left,
he's a mystery, but he also said we gave you the clue, or I gave you the clues, so you should be able to figure it out.
but
So
he's supposed.
that's just taken.
Yeah,
Well,
but he clearly didn't, though.
Well, he might have given them, but I mean, this is one of those like Sherlock Holmes kind of things where like it's such a good mystery that you can't just figure it out by
Well, no, I
reading
think
it one time.
I think he's Tolkien is saying, don't waste time trying to figure out who he is. It's better to figure out what his purpose is. And I think his purpose, him and Goldberry, their purpose is to represent the timeless, uncorruptible aspect of nature. In other words,
Yes, but that purpose is only going to mean anything to the readers. It won't mean anything in the Tolkien universe of Middle Earth
well,
and Arda.
again, the book is written for the reader, so to speak.
Well, it's written as a mythology to the reader, yes, to explain the mythos and everything. I get that, but I'm saying like in the actual history, like how the Valar came to be, how they came to Arda and morphed it around and everything, how the Melkor went bad and how everything went to crap and the elves and all that stuff, like all that stuff. It's a history of things that happened. So what is Tom Bombadil's purpose in that history that makes sense with the rest of the history,
He has
separate from
adventures.
his fourth wall?
He had there's stuff written about Tom besides what's in the Lord of the Rings. He had several poems written about him as well.
Yeah, but they weren't supposed to be related to him at all. It's a different thing because they were outside of the Tolkienverse.
Tolkien canonized him. You go into his when he republished all this, like the original story about Tom Bombadil, which was like the teddy bear stories from when he was a kid, right? And then when he wrote his book of poetry, which I have somewhere behind here, he formalized the 3 or 4 Tom Bombadil poems. Bombadil Goes Boating is one of them. But I think there's Tom Bombadil and the Moon or something like that. I don't remember the whole thing. Anyway, the point is he seems to have adventures related to nature. Like he's not a guy who goes out and says, "Oh, there's a bunch of orcs. Let me kill them with my magic power." He's not that.
I'll kill them with the power of singing.
I'll feed the orcs to my apple hat. Ah!
I just imagine him going out there singing, and the orcs are like, "Oh, the cringe!" They die.
Like the people of Buckland and Bree Country, whatever that, I don't know what Bree Country is actually called. That part of Arnor. They know of him. He interacts with them all the time. So he travels around. He does stuff.
I feel like all the time's a bit of a stretch, but yes, I can get the concept.
Yeah,
but like from the perspective of what we know of Tom Bombadil, this picture doesn't seem to be like, I don't want to say shrieking, doesn't exactly be quote unquote Tom Bombadilian style singing to me that this is Tom, because he looks very, very serious, right? And
correct.
I'm not
True,
sure.
It could just be that this one specific frame is the only bit where he's serious. I don't know.
It doesn't even look like a real beard.
the clothes look too new. They don't look like they've been worn.
Okay, let's get the fellowship, the stuff
Also,
from
they're
the fellowship into the frame here. Okay, so I'm reading from Tolkien Gateway because it's easier that way.
That one looks worn.
Tom looked like an old man who was taller and heavier than a hobbit, but not quite as tall enough for a man. Then the next one, his face was creased and red as a ripe apple, with blue and bright eyes. His hands were brown skinned. He had thick brown hair and a long brown beard. And then Tom wore a blue coat and an old tall hat with a long blue feather and yellow boots. You know, those are clearly yellow boots, right, guys?
Yeah.
Earlier, he wore a
they kind of
swan
are.
feather, which he later replaced with the blue from a kingfisher.
I mean, close enough to yellow, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yellow
I
with
mean,
dog crap all over it, right? Yeah.
well,
Yeah.
I mean, yellow boots aren't going to stay yellow if you're walking around in mud and dirt and all that stuff. Like you'd have to clean them.
They have
very
a little
consistently.
yellow tip, so
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, they have a yellowishness to them, but I wouldn't say they're like bright yellow. They're not Tuatha on bright yellow.
So, somewhere, probably in here, is a quote from the morons running this show. Okay.
We'll cover all that stuff. I just wanted to take a gander at the images first before we jumped into that. But yeah, that doesn't look like a blue hat to me. I don't see a feather anywhere. But it also says in the house of Tom Bombadil. This is apparently Tom's house. Where's Tom's house located?
This is his other house.
This is his vacationing home? Does he have three?
Tom's house is located on the border of Buckland and where Breeland is, around the Old Forest, right?
Yeah.
It's not around. It's in the Old Forest, but yeah.
So apparently,
So
according to
if he's in the house of Tom Bombadil, that means I would guess, and this is a prediction, it could be completely wrong. This is my prediction, is that this is like probably episode 6, 7, or 8. It's later on into the season, and they probably do their thing in Rune, and then they follow the rest of the Harfoots back. And then once they get to they take him to the Shire and they drop him off or something.
According to the quote, all right, Tom has another house in Rune. Well, I don't know, because Tom went there to investigate something.
Well, it doesn't say he's in Rune.
There's a quote from the showrunners.
Oh, well, we'll get to that. But again, why would he have another house somewhere else when he likes the Old Forest? And that's just where he is. And as far as we know, that's where he's always been. He's never been anywhere else. He doesn't even want to travel, for crying out loud. So why would he ever go anywhere? So let's look at this.
Even your dogs are upset about this photo.
Yeah, it's because Mama just got home and they want Mama. So I apologize. Tom Bombadil has finally been invited on one of the long and winding road trips through Middle Earth. He was not part of a road trip, though. The mystical character is one of the more offbeat figures in J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings saga, a woodland-dwelling man with an ethereal presence and a penchant for nonsense songs and brightly colored clothes. Even they admit the brightly colored clothes, and they also admit he's not wearing them. Who helped rescue the hobbits from peril early in the first book, The Fellowship of the Ring. As much as he stands apart, his name would likely draw a blank from anyone who hasn't read the novel since the two primary film retellings, Ralph Bakshi's animation 1978 opus and Peter Jackson's Oscar-winning live-action trilogy. Both cut the hymn from the narrative. What the cut the hymn? Cut him, you mean? From the narrative completely. New old Tom, as the book referred to him, is finally getting his moment in the sun, which is a shame because if they were doing an actual like true adaptation of Fellowship, Two Towers, Return of the King, I know a lot of people would be annoyed by all the little bits and pieces there, but at least it would work, I think. Anyway, I don't know how many, that it'd be a lot of episodes, but you could get probably 20 episodes for one book easily. And get them to go places and actually see like true stuff. But it's the reason people like reading the books, the reason it sold 150 million plus copies is because people enjoy that adventure. It's a natural adventure. That natural adventure would be the thing that you'd expect or want to have because you already you read the book because of it. So anybody who hasn't read the book, if they watch the show, they didn't like that more like 1-to-1 ratio book adaptation, well, they wouldn't have liked the book to begin with, which is probably why they modify stuff and change things a little bit. But it'd be an interesting character to say the least.
Well,
and weird.
following up to what you said, did you see George R. R. Martin's quote about about adaptations?
I heard about it, but I don't think I have seen it.
I will grab it and show you the article because
If you want to just read it, because I still don't
Yeah,
have
I'll read it. If you
sharing
want to,
thing back and forth, I'm not going to tinker with that.
I gotta find. I found it on 6 different sites. Where did I see it last? Bounty Comics, maybe.
Let me continue reading, otherwise we're never going to get this article done in time for you guys to get off. The Rings of Power, the Amazon Prime Video series based on Tolkien's ancient history of fantasy realm, I press X to doubt, will break that tradition of exclusion and finally feature Tom Bombadil along with his jolly songs and his flamboyant wardrobe. Please don't say flamboyant wardrobe. That sounds.
Oh, it's actually on his blog. I'll get the source quote.
But his jolly songs, none of those images look like he was jolly. All those look very serious, not jolly at all. When its second season begins August 29th, Bombadil was described in Tolkien's books as, quote unquote, older than old, a benevolent entity who began life around the time all life began. So his existence in this earlier era, thousands of years before the events of The Lord of the Rings, fits within the canon established by the author. In a 1937 letter to his publisher, mulling a possible sequel to The Hobbit, Tolkien described Bombadil as, quote unquote, the spirit of the vanishing Oxford and Berkshire countryside. Maybe that's what he is. He's literally England's spirit and trapped in Arda. I don't know. The author bristled at the notion that he wrote an allegory, but it's clear he saw Bombadil as nature personified. Well, there goes all of our concepts.
Well, no, that is the article writer saying that, not Tolkien.
Well, he says the author bristled at as he clearly, but it's clear he saw Bombadil as nature personified, which is, I mean, anybody who reads it can guess that he has something to do with nature in some.
Yeah, that we all agree on that.
Yeah, that's.
But do you want the Martin? The Martin.
Let me finish this one little piece, and we'll go into that.
Yeah.
Right up to the characters' ambivalence about interfering in the larger world around him. That left showrunners, we don't care about them, to figure out how he might turn up in their show and why. So before we go into that, you want to go ahead and read the quote?
So this is it's from his blog, right? It's not a blog. And there was an article back in 2022 where he and Neil Gaiman were at a convention, and they were basically bitching and complaining legitimately that Hollywood keeps changing source material, but they hate the source, they hate Hollywood, right? And here's the current quote. So that was all back in 2022, but very little has changed since then. If anything, things have gotten way worse. Everywhere you look, there are more and more screenwriters and producers eager to take great stories and make them, and this is in quotations, make them their own. It doesn't seem to matter whether the source material was written by Stan Lee, Charles Dickens, Ian Fleming, Ronald Dahl, Ursula K. Le Guin, J.R. Tolkien, Mark Twain, Raymond Chandler, Jane Austen, or, well, anyone. No one, no matter how major a writer is, no matter how great the book, there always seems to be someone on hand who thinks that he can do better, eager to take the story and then, again, in quotation marks, improve it on it. The book is the book. The film is the film, they'll tell you, as if they're saying something profound. Then they make the story their own. Then he goes, they never make it better, though. 999 times out of 1,000, they make it worse. Then he goes, once in a while, though, we do get a really good adaptation of a really good book, and what happens, it deserves applause. And then he goes and talking about Shogun, after that. So.
I would agree with him, and I don't even necessarily care about his work that much, but I would agree with him.
Oh, he's dead right, Yeah.
Well, he's almost dead. But, hopefully not until he finishes Winds of Winter and the other book. But
that's never going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
And the truth of the matter is, though, there are a lot of things that much as we want it to be finished, and I'm not buying another product of his until when he's dead, I'll probably buy them, but not until he's dead. If
he will not benefit from this.
But I mean, there's a lot of stuff in history that Gordon R. Dickinson never completed the Dragon Knight series.
I mean, there's a reason to not finish it, and that's one of the things he does. But I honestly, I don't get well, my legacy when I die, I don't want it to be people disappointed in me. I'm like, you're dead. Who cares? Just finish your story. It's your story. It's not their story. It's your story. Yeah. If they don't like how it ends, they can shove off. That's literally how stories like. If I was to say, hey, let's go look at Julius Caesar's life, I'm not going to tell the story with the ending you, the reader, wants. I'm going to tell the story as it actually happened. And if you don't like how that ends, then, well, I'm sorry. That's not.
Again,
That's how the story.
I don't want to like I said. I'm not either. I don't want to go into slamming Martin because he's been slammed enough for this, or to like, or
It's
no,
been
on the other hand,
4,244 days since. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't want to go praising him or whatever. Like the point I'm making is, I can name many authors who have series of books that they kept writing and they died and they were never finished. You know, Roger Zelazny, one of the great science fiction and fantasy authors of all time, never finished the Chronicles of Amber. He was writing, I doubt the David Gerald's going to finish the War Against the Couture, which is a great science fiction epic that's been writing. He's been writing longer than Martin's been writing his stuff, and he comes out one book every 17 years, basically. You know, yeah. You know, I think he started publishing in like the early 70s, and then and the fourth or fifth book was published in 2012. To give you an idea, you know.
Yeah.
But so from the point of view of, I guess you can expect if someone's going to do this long-term epic stuff, sooner or later, some of it's going to be left undone. You know what I mean? I mean, we're just lucky that.
I mean,
we're just lucky that Jordan wanted someone else to finish it for him.
Yeah, I was going to say Jordan would have finished it himself if he hadn't been cut off a little early.
Yeah,
and that's one of the sad realities is that he couldn't make it because of his terminal illness. But I think we would have gotten something that everybody would have been happy with if he had just kept going. Not saying that Sanderson didn't do, a half decent job, just that I think obviously everybody, including Sanderson himself, would probably admit that he would prefer if Robert Jordan was around to finish his own story because he enjoyed that story just as much. So I think everybody's in unanimous agreement. It would have been great if Robert Jordan was stayed alive and finished his own story so we could get the clear ending.
But I said Robert Jordan is the exception, not the rule. Most of these authors either don't care or don't want someone to finish their work.
Well, yeah, they're doing it for a buck or something like that. They care about this legacy, like it's going to matter when you're dead and gone.
Even Tolkien, he's an exception because he was okay with Christopher keep producing material. He was okay with that,
Yeah.
But then into Tolkien, he considered Christopher almost a co-author, because he worked with him for so many years. I mean, he literally threw material at his kids as they were getting older. So, I mean, they basically know the world about as well as he does. Imagine your dad being J.R.R. Tolkien and sitting around the dinner table and just talking about the world of Middle Earth and Arda and everything. Like, just being like, hey, but what about this one guy over here? What about that lady over there? What? Just like going off and being able to just throw things around. And that could potentially have been what helped shape the way Middle Earth and everything was, just because you're just talking to your dad. So then when you get older and you're like, Dad, I really care about your stuff, I want to help you edit stuff, I'm sure that tickled him pink. Like, he was just ecstatic that his kid was so involved with his work. And then it's just
obviously
funny.
Later on, he's like, hey, if you want to do it, then he's like, hey, let me take these things like the Lay of Beren and Luthien, the Fall of Gondolin, what was the other one? The Children of Hurin, all that kind of stuff. Like, let me flesh these out. Let me make these more complete as individual novels as apart to just a couple, like maybe a chapter or a paragraph in a freaking,
Well, they're not really individual novels. They're more scholarly collections of. It's very interesting though, but like.
Well, it's taking something that was small in the Silmarillion and making it a little bit larger and more fleshed out.
Well, no, what he did in those books is he took, like, as I'm reading through of Beren and Luthien right now, he has published like every single version of Beren and Luthien, including the original poem Tolkien began like in the 1920s before the Legendary was a thing, and he put them in order and commenting on how things evolved from one to the other. So it's.
So what you're saying is if they ever made an adaptation, they couldn't possibly screw up, right?
Yeah. But the one place where Christopher did add stuff, in a sense, is the Silmarillion, because he and Guy K took all this chunk of work and had to piece together stuff from different versions of Tolkien's events, what he thought was more likely, and he did touch the prose up to make it a little smoother in the Silmarillion. But Tolkien was fine with that. You know what I mean? So again, another guy was an exception to the rule, as it were. Yeah. But
well, let's get through this so I can get you guys out of here because I know you got a short time period. So, quote: There's a reason why he hasn't been in prior adaptations, because in some ways he's sort of an anti-dramatic character, end quote. At least partial quote. What's his face tells Vanity Fair for this exclusive first look, one of the showrunners. That's all you need to know. Well, one of the reasons he hasn't been in prior adaptations because he's sort of he's not anticlimactic or anti-dramatic, I should say. He's not anti-dramatic. He's actually very dramatic. I mean, look at the dude. He freaking sings and dances, and he's a very odd fellow for the modern audience. So
I think if you do include him in, for example, the movies or something, maybe a series, whatever, if he can just sort of do whatever he wants with the ring and be unaffected, it does take the tension out of it a bit.
Well, I mean, it doesn't
again,
though,
it would
because
be
he would throw it away. Like that's something that Gandalf, I believe, mentions in the books. Is that like
Gandalf and Elrond were talking about that.
He would have no interest in it, and after a while, throw it away, and it'd be lost into who knows where and where, why, and how. Like it's not anti-dramatic. If anything, it increases the tension.
The ring is explained as this super evil magical thing, right?
Yeah,
which corrupts everyone who touches it, sees it, whatever. Then enter Tom Bombadil, and he just is completely unaffected. So you think, oh, maybe it's not actually that dangerous a thing.
Well, yes, but wouldn't that make you more curious about the one person in all of Arda that can do this without having any effect on them?
Sure, but if you then go on with the story...
Also think about it, though. Like, if he doesn't... Like, if he just chucks the ring and he loses it or something, it's game over for the rest of the world, because Sauron's going to eventually just grow in power, and he's not going to be stopped, because he'll just have to keep going, build up, and then go.
Sauron does not need the ring to raffle stomp everyone. The ring, he needs the ring to control.
It's the one thing to kind of nix him.
Yeah.
And if the whole purpose is the dramatic aspect is them getting the ring to Mount Doom to chuck it in to end this entire
but that's not the
fiasco.
part that's important for this particular situation.
Well, but what I'm saying is in his situation, if he has it and he doesn't do anything, like nothing, it doesn't affect him, well, he's not going to go to Mount Doom. He has no desire. He won't, as Matt had said previously, he had no desire to do so. So
but it takes the edge of the ring.
Well,
how? If the ring doesn't make it to Mount Doom, it's game over.
No, it's because it's not anymore a super corruptible evil magic ring.
Okay. In the sense of
immediately after you get it, you see, it doesn't really affect anyone. Well, not everyone.
Well,
it's
that's a movie misconception.
That scary of a thing.
But that's a movie misconception too. Okay. The ring works on everyone who touches it, but it's not like insta mind rape, you know?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
It's a gradual thing.
Yeah. In the context of who Tom Bombadil is in the booklets in Lord of the Rings, in a 2 or 3 hour movie, there's no way to convey him in a way that would convey the character well. Now, if they did
you could do it in like 10-15 minutes.
No, I wouldn't. I think you would need to spend a whole episode like you would end one episode with them getting trapped by the Barrow-wights, or whatever.
If you're doing it episodic, I meant in movie format.
In
movie format.
I would think you would need to see Tom on his land. You know what I mean? You would need to see the whole bit. Well, you would end with them getting caught by the old man.
I could pull it off.
You would need to see Tom on his land, the whole thing where he actually
Old Man Willow.
Old Man Willow. You need to see all of that, and then later on have the time for that extended conversation with Gandalf. Was it Gandalf and Elrond or Gandalf and Glorfindel? Have them talking about Tom's nature like later on, and to put it in context. And and I get what Jackson did in the movies. This is why I don't go crazy, even though yes, I could nitpick these movies forever. That's why I don't go crazy with the 2 hour versions, because he captured the essence of the book in his 3 2 hour movies, right? And the deviances, the things that drive me crazy in the theatrical versions almost don't bother me, So
they bother me because they're too short.
Well, the problem is when I watch the extended versions, I start ranting at the screen because of the changes.
That's because you're a
So,
ranter, heart and soul.
no. Well, even the beginning. I mean, it's not to get way sidetracked, but like when I first saw the Fellowship of the Ring and it had the beginning, and they did this thing where Galadriel is reading what happened in the ancient times, and they show Isildur cutting, and I actually almost I had to bite my hand. Like, that's not what happened. I actually did that, but now to breathe, Matt. It's a movie. They can only show 2 hours. They can't. They have to explain to the audience. They can't have they can't have a 20-minute fight between Gil-galad, Elendil, and Sauron. And they can't do that. I get that. Breathe,
I mean, they could.
breathe. They can't
Release the 14-hour version.
If it were me, it would have been the Siege of Barad-dûr itself would have been a movie.
Yeah.
At the end,
I mean,
Sauron would come down, kill
that'd
his
be
way
very
through
difficult,
hundreds and
but yeah.
hundreds of people with bodies exploding till he finally gets to where.
I mean, I agree. That would be interesting. I don't think you can make a whole episode or whole movie out of that.
Well, you can do it in an episode for sure. You can't do it in a 2-hour movie.
A 30-minute episode, maybe, or an hour.
Yeah.
Hour would be pushing it.
Like, you can do an extended prologue as episode 1 or whatever. You know what I mean? You can have the actual fight, but I get in a 2-hour movie. That's why then I said to myself, okay,
you have to make up a lot of dialogue to fill that thing out. Is the problem?
You just need Sauron raffle stomping an army and then finally getting taken down by the group of Gil-galad, Elendil, Isildur, Círdan, and Elrond.
Yeah. But let's continue with the quote. Quote, "He's not a character who has a particularly strong agenda. He observes drama, but largely doesn't participate in it. In the Fellowship of the Ring, the characters whoever wrote this article does not know how to write. The characters kind of just go there and hang out for a while.
What?
And Tom drops some knowledge on them.
Not a book reader.
Well, yes, he's a showrunner." End quote. Now, here's what I want to say. When it says he's not a character who has a particularly strong agenda, that's more or less true from what we can understand of him. But he observes drama, but largely doesn't participate in it. I don't even know if he observes it, really. I mean, he happens along events, but I don't think he's observing them like, what is this like? I don't think he cares enough. But it says, and he largely doesn't participate in it. He could be the center of a lot of drama due to the fact that he doesn't care about drama. Like, you could make it work. You can make it reasonably work to the point where this guy is like, he's hi ho dibbly do, like doing his little song and dance, singing, talking about nature and all that stuff, talking about Goldberry, talking to the hobbits, all that kind of stuff. But being into like, well, what would happen if we unleashed this guy on the entire world? And it's like, well, a lot of drama would happen. It'd be like Rand going from freaking Terabon all the way down to freaking Tyr. Everything that goes along with them, just drama. It'd be basically the same thing if that was to happen, but it doesn't. So they're like, oh, there's no drama. Like, but if he did, there would be drama. Like, he's not void of drama just because he doesn't have interest in other things. But like, if you said, hey Tom, why don't you go plant a flower in Mount Doom? I'm pretty sure you could coax him into it if you really got him into like, why don't you bring life back to Mount Doom? And he's like, oh, sure. Like, here, put this ring on while you're going. You could make it a funny story. Obviously, it wouldn't be Tolkien's world specifically in that regard because that's how he was written. But that's something that they could have talked about. It's like, well, what if we convince him to go plant a garden at the base of Mount Doom? It's like,
hey Tom,
well, that could work.
They say no one could make plants go in lava. Maybe you could do it.
It would be funny because all the dramatic things like the orcs, Uruk-hai, anything coming out.
Sauron's last thought is, "Wow, I didn't think that would work." Just last thought.
Like, I thought they would use the eagles. But yeah, so McKay, another person you don't need to care about. Knowledge that's not particularly relevant to anything that they're doing or about to do.
Yeah, I mean, saving it from Old Man Willow, no big deal.
I feel like that at that point they just don't know what they're talking about, and
you're taking them to breed. No big deal.
Bombadil first turns up when the hobbits run afoul of Old Man Willow, an angry tree in the old forest who swallows Merry and Pippin in the folds of his bark. Bombadil sings a song that soothes the savage sprout. Well, they're really trying to trick you that one. Causing it to release the halflings. After a brief stay with him and his wife Goldberry, the little ones depart. Later, they're rescued again by Bombadil when they are captured by malevolent spirits known as Barrow-wights, who sees them in an ancient cemetery. Barrow is Old English word for burial mound, and white is a kind of a ghost. At least that's
Tolkien
more
would
or less
hate that
accurate.
sentence. That one with bomb, because there's a lot of alliteration in that sentence, and Tolkien thought alliteration was a very cheap way to write at times.
Well, it's Vanity Fair. That is a cheap way to write.
Yeah.
True.
He can be a force for good, this is a quote, but he is challenging to integrate dramatically in that he doesn't have an agenda. I mean, this guy has not read Wheel of Time and doesn't understand that Rand didn't have an agenda when he went to Kyrian, and there's a lot of drama around him for that. He's not driving forward and pushing people to arrive at any particular end. Neither was Rand, but here we are. Rand creating the biggest controversy in Kyrian history just by existing. Tolkien himself was hazy about the character's purpose and said he kept Bombadil in the story even though he didn't have a clear purpose plot-wise. Quote, Tom Bombadil is not an important person to the narrative, end quote. So he's an important person, just not to the story that's being told in the actual sense.
Wait, stop. So the moron who wrote this says, and he kept Bombadil in the story even though he didn't have a clear purpose plot-wise, then quotes Tolkien and says, Tom Bombadil is not an important person to the narrative. He grossly misinterprets what Tolkien said. I can't. I just can't.
Tolkien wrote in a 1954 letter to his proofreader for The Lord of the Rings, quote, I suppose he has some importance as a comment. I mean, I do not really write like that. He represents something that I feel important, though I would not be prepared to analyze the feeling precisely. End quote. One reader of the book suggested that Tom Bombadil was a stand-in for God himself. We have Iluvatar, literally. Prompting a Tolkien to reply in another 1954 letter, quote, I really do think you are being too serious, besides missing the point.
Yeah.
End quote. Above all, Tolkien was determined not to overthink old Tom, which is fine if he doesn't want to, but of course his readers are going to. But obviously that would be a wrong statement because Eru Iluvatar already exists, and Eru does have an interest in the plot. Yeah. That's why he helps it along. Anyway, the mystery and passivity of the character made him all the more intriguing to the showrunners. I doubt that's the reason. Turning him into a narrative riddle to solve, sure, but they're not going to do it right. Quote, he has no clear dramatic function that would justify his inclusion in a really great movie adaptation. He's whimsical and magical and almost verging on silly. Well, I mean, they've obviously never been to Rivendell and The Hobbit. But also has the wisdom of the ages and the music of the spheres and deep emotional wells of ancient history and myth. And his conception and function are tied to Norse myths and have deep roots in European folktale, showrunner says. End quote of that, but then continues on with the quote. So weirdly, he's kind of the most Lord of the Rings thing in Lord of the Rings, and also the first thing you would cut if you were adapting it as a film. But we have the advantage of a television show, and hence we are going to find a way to tap into that, end quote. Now, I do find it funny because he kind of touches on all these things, but he doesn't really add about him, I guess is the easiest way to say that. He's talking about he's tied to Norse myths, deep roots in European fairy tale. He's the most Lord of the Rings thing in Lord of the Rings. So it's he's trying to talk, but not knowing what he's talking about, kind of a thing. So I'm not really sure what's going on with that. Tolkien offered a few clues in the 1954 letter to his proofreader, explaining why Bombadil chooses to break his neutrality and help the hobbits. Quote, the story is cast in terms of a good side and a bad side, beauty against ruthless ugliness, tyranny against kingship, moderated freedom with consent against compulsion that has long lost any object save mere power, end quote, Tolkien wrote. To someone like Bombadil, he said, quote, the question of the rights and wrongs of power and control might become utterly meaningless to you, and the means of power quite valueless, end quote. Tolkien described Bombadil as a natural pacifist view, which always arises in the mind where there is war, quote unquote. But also he believed the character would tip the scale of fate in favor of the hobbits and their fellowship as they stood against the forces of evil rising in the eastern portion of Middle-earth. Quote, ultimately, only the victory of the West will allow Bombadil to continue or even to survive. Nothing would be left for him in the world of Sauron. End quote. Tolkien wrote. This was the key for the Rings of Power showrunners. We started thinking, quote, what does he care about? How would you freaking know? You never read the books. And how can he be a doorway to drama?
Dangerous thing for those types of people.
The most empty-headed people are the worst people you want to be thinking because they don't think at all.
Mm-hmm.
How can that be a doorway to drama? I was like, you don't have to make him dramatic. You have to make things around him dramatic. It's that simple. It's literally that simple. In order to create drama, you don't need parties involved to all be dramatic. You just need things happening to be dramatic around the parties involved. That's literally simple. You think that these well-renowned and respected showrunners with a large history of well-done work would know this, except none of that applies to them. We know he cares about the natural world, and we know he is a helper. He's not going to push you, but he will help you. Not necessarily. He'll forget about you eventually. And so traditionally, he lives in this place called the Withywindle, which is the sort of almost enchanted forest. It's either almost enchanted
this
or
is
is
basically exactly what Martin said in his quote. They're taking something Tolkien wrote and thinking they could write it better and putting their own crap in there.
They're modifying not to adapt, but to create. Or in this case, sub-create. For the series, the showrunners took the liberty of giving Bombadil a second home. Of course they took the liberty. That's all they do is they take liberties.
So this is the Rune secret base, right? Yeah.
On the outskirts of a region called Rune. Quote, in our story, he has gone out to the lands of Rune. Why would he? Which we learn used to be sort of Edenic, means of Eden, and green and beautiful, but now it's sort of a dead wasteland. Well, Rune's not a dead and wasteland. It still is beautiful. That's kind of weird, but okay. Tom has gone out there to see what's happened as he goes on his various wanderings. Where do you get the idea he has a various wandering bone in his body? Because as far as we know, he always stayed in the old forest because that's all. He was completely content and satisfied with where he was. I don't get it.
Rune would literally be basically like Eastern Europe and Western Asia.
Yeah,
I thought it was strongly based on Persia.
Depends how. I mean, if I'm not talking, I'm talking the region, meaning not the multiple nations within. Yeah,
the geography.
Like if you ever see the big map, there's like Mordor, right?
Yeah.
And then there's Ravinian and then there's Rune. You know,
it's a massive area.
Yeah.
That's the same place where the second season, The Rings of Power, finds the halflings Nori and Poppy as they escort the amnesiac wizard known as the Stranger. I hate this already. I'm having traumatic PTSD like right now from flashbacks to this season. Toward discovering his purpose, because obviously an idiot wouldn't know what his purpose is. At the end of the first season, the Stranger gave off some major Gandalf signifiers. We already know he's Gandalf. Using terminology, but he doesn't have the rights. They don't have the rights to call him Gandalf, at least for the first season. Maybe they do this second. It's particularly wise to the old sorcerer played by Ian McKellen in the Jackson films. Expect Tom Bombadil to offer the Stranger some rare compassion in his otherwise merciless place. As the showrunner explains, quote, when he finally crosses paths with the Stranger, you could say he has a desire to keep the destruction that has happened there from spreading to his beloved lands in the West. He nudges the Stranger along his journey, which he knows will eventually protect the larger natural world he cares about. Okay, so this is going to be the early episodes then. So I'd say our Tom Bombadil is slightly more interventionist than you see in the books, but only by 5 or 10%. Now, end quote. I'd like to point out, he would desire to prevent it from spreading to his beloved lands of the West. In Fellowship of the Ring, he has no desire to prevent Sauron from destroying the Shire or anything else. He just wants to live in the old forest. It obviously wouldn't end well if that was to happen, but he doesn't make any effort to like, I'm going to go give Sauron a piece of my mind with a good old dilly dally doodly, like, and just sing to him or something. Like, that's not what he's going to do. So it doesn't make any sense whatsoever to be like, oh, well, he's now interventionist. He doesn't want this beautiful place that was turned to a wasteland. If anything, he'd walk over there, sing it, and they just grow plants back. Like, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Like, if he doesn't care what happened to Mordor, if he doesn't care about what happened to other places, he wouldn't care. That's the whole point. Tom Bombadil is played on The Rings of Power by Rory Kinnear. I don't even know who that is. Perhaps best known as M's chief of staff in the last 4 James Bond movies. That's probably why I don't know, because I didn't watch them. Frankenstein's creature in Penny Dreadful. I vaguely remember that. And the British Prime Minister who commits unspeakable act for noble cause in the very first. I really don't care about any of this. Most actors take on a well-known genre character claim to be experts in that character. Kinnear says he admits he's not. In fact, he was Lord of the Rings novice before signing the Rings of Power. To be fair, Viggo Mortensen was as well. So I mean, wouldn't
put matter if it's a good actor and
if he's a good actor and they pay attention to the material,
exactly,
sure. But like Viggo was literally reading the Fellowship of the Ring like the first day he was on set, as they were recording other stuff, because he wanted to get a handle on who Strider / Aragorn is. Yeah. So it's like that. I don't mind. Like, I don't mind if he doesn't know anything about Tom Bombadil or the Legend of the Lord of the Rings series or anything in the Tolkien Legendarium. That's fine. I don't. Obviously, not every person on the cast is going to have an exorbitant knowledge about the entire thing, but at least to this extent, he could put a little effort. In fact, there are a few people who know about it from the books, people who knew it from the films, and there are those who managed to get to 46 without knowing much about it at all. And when he was offered the part, he says, I was honest, I hadn't read it, and I said, I'll go away and read it and get back to you. And he went downstairs to my partner, that's a good sign, who did know the books and does know the films, and I said, I've been offered this part, apparently it's in the books, a guy called Tom Bombadil. And she was like, no way! You're not playing Tom Bombadil.
Hell no, you guy, you will not play Tom Bombadil.
So I knew instantly that I had cultural heft to that, and I was going to have to be sensitive to. You don't be sensitive, you be true to it. That's all you got to do. If you're true to it, sensitivity can go shove it.
Well, yeah, he doesn't know what the Lord of the Rings is, so clearly he's not sensitive to it.
Apparently his partner is a Penny Dreadful actor, Pandora Collin. I have no idea who that is. I don't want to know.
Well, I've seen Penny Dreadful.
I've seen a couple episodes of it. It was pretty dreadful, honestly. Simply surprised to hear that the show would feature Tom Bombadil, and she wasn't disputing his casting. She was excited, and that was her excited face. She was like, I can't believe that. Her words were, he's my favorite character in all the books. I mean, to be fair, that he is a favorite character of a lot of people.
Yeah.
He's
a funny character, and the poems, like I said, the poems are pretty cool.
As perplexing as Bombadil may be, even to his creator, this quirk is also part of his charm. Readers of Lord of the Rings have been pining for a Bombadil screen appearance for years, prompting Jackson to explain that he left the character out precisely because he interrupts the story's central quest. What we did contemplate, and it was really for the fans, was to have the hobbits walking through the old forest and see a feathered cap come darting through the trees to hear the sound of Tom Bombadil's voice and song, and then have the hobbits turn and run away as fast as they could. That was in December 2001 issue of Cinefantastique. Continue quote, we thought that would acknowledge Tom Bombadil in an affectionate joke kind of way, but we didn't have time to do it. End quote. Absence has only made the Heart of Lord of the Rings fandom grow fonder for old Tom, and in addition to his prominent role in the new season Rings of Power, HarperCollins is publishing a new edition of Tolkien's 1962 book, The Adventures of Tom Bombadil, featuring his poems about the ethereal figure, some of which date back to the long before his epic trilogy. The book, set to hit shelves August 20th, is aimed at the enduring fascination Tolkien readers have for this enigmatic fantasy figure. Even Tolkien himself was transfixed. Now, the question I have, are they going to do it with the stupid Rings of the Power cover, or are they going to do it like a classical Tolkien book?
Just buy the book. It's right there.
Well, yeah, but they're going to be doing an exclusive. So if it's exclusive, is it like the fancy new ones that have a unique cover, maybe some Alan Lee's art style?
I'm willing to bet that it is going to be like the
Amazon Rings of Power nonsense. or it has that stupid sticker on it, even if it is like the old artwork. They're like when Wheel of Time stuff, you like find a Wheel of Time book, you're like, oh, Wheel of Time book. It has no
eBay, your friend.
images from it, and then it just has this little sticker on it, and it's really annoying. What'd you what?
eBay is your friend.
eBay is your friend, yes. It's also expensive for the good stuff.
You have the right time. I mean, you keep checking for stuff, you know.
Mm-hmm.
All my life. Quote, he has his origins in the name of a wooden doll that lived in the Tolkien family, and like many toys owned by the children, such as teddy bears who appeared in Mr. Bliss, or the middle dog that inspired the hero of Rover Random, Tom Bombadil was drawn into Tolkien's invented world. Says Chris Smith, the publishing director of the company's Tolkien titles, telling obviously the Vanity Fair. His first known appearance was in the 1920s in a story entitled Tom Bombadil, and even in this fragment, which included in the new edition of the Adventures of Tom Bombadil, he is described as one of the oldest inhabitants in the kingdom, suggesting that from the outset, Tolkien viewed Tom as primordial. Later in the early 1930s, Tolkien put him into a poem. The early poem was the beginning of a long fascination. I really hate this ad. Was a fascination with the character. Tolkien's full verse for the Adventures of Tom Bombadil was published in 1934 in the Oxford magazine and led him to wonder if this woodland being might be a good protagonist for future stories. Ultimately, Bombadil would remain a supporting player for the Lord of the Rings saga, which, with Tolkien determined not to explore his full nature too thoroughly. Having lived for the millennia, he has learned and understood its deeper mysteries, and perhaps that is why he's now become, quote-unquote, master, as he called him, by himself and his wife Goldberry, and why he is free from any control of the outside world. He is pure and unaffected joy in the living things of the world, very much removed from the oppressive menace of the overarching tale of the Quest of the Ring. Perhaps Tolkien intended Tom to remain forever a light in the darkness of troubled times, but ultimately he must remain a delightful enigma. And of course, this was not helpful to Kinnear, who bring humanity to this walking and talking symbol of harmony with nature, completely left out, apparently, from all the images they gave us, the joyful aspects in the song. That would be it'd be like a musical almost, if he was in it as accurate characters. That kind of, I guess that they could see that as kind of a pull away from the story. But much of that responsibility fell to the showrunner's new scenes, in which Tom Bombadil offers playful guidance to the otherwise heavy and ominous stranger. I don't think Gandalf would be considered heavy nor ominous, but okay. I was really interested to see how they were going to process the character through the prism of their eyes and the way they see the show developing. There's the sense of huge experience, huge openness, huge empathy, and having gone through so much, he knows it's the small things that are important. He's not Gandalf, guys. That felt actually quite domestic. Huh?
He's Standoff. This is Ron Bombadil and Standoff.
Well, no, I meant Tom Bombadil is not Gandalf, so he wouldn't be like, it's the small things that are important. That's Gandalf's shtick. Yeah. Tom Bombadil wouldn't have that. That actually felt quite domestic, felt reachable in terms of my understanding of who he was. Well, apparently you didn't try hard enough. No offense. Tolkien himself laid out the look for the character, just writing in Chapter 6 of Lord of the Rings, quote, suddenly hopping and dancing along the path, there appeared above the reeds an old battered hat with a tall crown and long blue feather stuck in the band. With another hop and a bound, there came into view a man, or so it seemed. At any rate, he was too large and heavy for a hobbit, if not quite tall enough for one of the big people, though he made noise enough for one, stumping along with the great yellow boots on his thick legs and charging through the grass and rushes like a cow going down to drink. He had a blue coat and long brown beard, his eyes were blue and bright, and his face was red as a ripe apple, but creased into 100 wrinkles of laughter. His boots are yellow, the jacket is blue, and he's got a feather in his hat, so all of the main beats were hit. I don't remember seeing any of those images, him wearing a blue hat. And even this one right here, even this looks like a plain outfit. That doesn't look like he's colorful in the slightest.
Tell it's more like Jesus than Tom Bombadil.
That doesn't look a thing like Jesus.
I said it looks more like Jesus.
You don't know what Jesus looks like then, apparently. Where are we? Yes. Comparing Bombadil's flamboyant style to the way a child
this is just stuff they're attempting to pad the article out by copy pasting from their Google quotes. That's all.
I mean, it's been a moderately decent written article, minus some of the grammatical errors and spelling errors that the editors clearly did not try bothering with. But it's more along the sides of flamboyant It's a loaded term in today's day and age. You just knock your mic over.
Yeah.
My daughter is 10, and for a year and a half, she wore a sheep hat throughout the school day and through the hottest summer. And it was just the face of a sheep with a big, long, woolly straps around the side. I mean, absolutely ridiculous. Too small for her as well, but I could not get it off her. There you are. She didn't care. We could take something from that attitude, I think, as adults. Now, I think that might be moderately close to a Tom Bombadil childlike fascination with things, but I don't think that's necessarily Tom Bombadil to the T. The other major inspiration for Tom Bombadil came not from the freshness of childhood, but from the permanence of extreme age, more geological than biological. The big thing was, how's he going to talk? Well, there's like lots of things to read. There's lots of different dialects and accents going on throughout the show, and I wanted to be somehow distinct from those. But I also wanted to choose an accent that felt old, that was British, but felt like the oldest part of Britain. Not difficult to do. The notion hit him while he's swimming off the coast of Cornwall on the westernmost tip of southern England. The rock in Cornwall just sort of erupts out of the sea, and you can see all layers of accretion. And I was looking at it and just thinking, God, this has to be been here for so long. It's a bit like standing on Table Mountain overlooking Cape Town in South Africa, and you think this mountain has seen everything, and this silly little city develop from its tiny little speck. I must feel so young to this mountain, this tiny little city, now a fantastic city. I don't know what this guy's rammering on about, but it doesn't make like it has any lick of sense to do with anything.
Maybe he's high.
Probably. Or maybe he's trying to pad the article.
That's also possible.
I remember looking up the rocks and thinking the things that it's seen, the sailors that I've passed by, when I was thinking of the oldest parts of Britain, that was where I naturally found myself being led. So I worked with somebody, the dialect coach, on getting a Cornish accent together. And those were the big building blocks of the character. That's not the character. That's literally just how he sounds. That's not the character. I think we're almost done, so here we go. As season 2 of The Rings of Power gets underway, Tom Bombadil offers aid and comfort not just to the stranger, but also to the audience. Does he, though? Season 1 set...
Well, we don't know yet.
Season 1 set pieces on the chessboard, and in season 2, the pieces are in motion, and it's really about the villains. You've got Sauron, who's not cloaked behind the guise of the human refugee Halbrand anymore. The audience knows he's Sauron. Well, so do the elves, but apparently Galadriel's caught off guard by this, even though she knew who he was at the end of the first season.
Yeah.
So now we're watching him maneuver as he's manipulating the burn scar covered dark elf, Adar, who's another big villain of the season. Different actor, though. Really, Tom is sort of a curiosity within the structure because while it is darker, Tom Bombadil is singing and saying lines that would be nursery rhymes from children's poems. I have a hard time believing that from the pictures we've been given. So he sort of defies the tonal shift of the rest of the season and is a real point of light amidst an otherwise sea of darkness. Tom Bombadil brings this levity while remaining somewhat in the shadows himself, and the showrunners have decided not to answer any questions about the character that Tolkien himself left deliberately unresolved. That's because they have no answers. None. They don't know the character. That's obvious. But as Smith puts it, perhaps the only answer to the enigma that is Tom Bombadil is simply to accept that, as Tolkien wrote in The Lord of the Rings, he is. Yay, a cliffhanger. So
I mean, it could be that he actually behaves like Tom Bombadil, and this is just a very unfortunate set of screenshots.
Yeah, I have a hard time having a serious tone in the entirety of the series. Like, there's no brevity in the series outside of maybe Durin the Third and Elrond. And even that, it's usually that's what she said joke.
No, we're clearly wrong. Tolkien just forgot to mention Bombadil's winter house in Rune. You know what I mean?
True, yeah. I thought it was a summer.
You mean his wasteland house in Rune?
Yeah.
But yeah.
Which makes it very... Obviously, there's the absurdity of making a character who technically is not white. But then, where his land is literally right in the middle of where all the action took place in the first season. On the road from where Gil-galad lives to where Ostinethill is, you have to technically travel very close or through his land. And, like, you'd think they could have had him be there since I was going to be traveling back and forth there. Like, maybe logically doing probably maybe Elrond could stop. Hey, let's ask Tom Bombadil about what's been going on, or something like that. I mean, no, nothing based on the actual lore of where he might actually be, because then it'd be reasonable Just, that'd be a reasonable addition.
But then he wouldn't be there for fake Gandalf when he needs him to tell him nursery rhymes and sing them songs.
Why is fake Standoff going to Rune? Why is Standoff going
because they're Nazgul ladies, clearly.
No, it's because the hobbits are there.
I thought they were taking the hobbits to Isengard.
Well, that's still in process. They have to get
the hobbits to Isengard.
So Standoff is going to Rune because the not bitch are going to Rune. Okay, there we go. So that's the explanation.
It's called nonsense for a reason.
What's specifically happening in Rune, by the way?
The Nazgul ladies, remember?
No.
You don't
the ones, the people who were hunting him because they thought he was Sauron.
I mean, I vaguely remember.
The bald chick.
Yeah.
Now you remember?
The show ended when the volcano exploded, so I don't know what's going on.
I wish the show ended when the volcano exploded. There'd be no
basically,
because they all died in a pyroclastic wave.
That would make the most logical sense, yes. Yep. Which in the real Tolkien world of Arda, they would have died in a pyroclastic blast because that's how pyroclastic blasts work. But
if you could see that volcano from where they were supposed to be, if you could see the explosion from there, it would have killed you.
Nuclear bomb, basically.
I suppose the hobbits might have been further away, I guess.
They'd see like a poof.
There were extensive physics analyses of that volcanic eruption depicted in the in that show. You can go back and find it. They're like the science people were like, oh, if you could see this volcano from clearly what is like 8,000 miles away, on and on,
And, but that's how Mordor got all murky, right?
Yeah.
So it has to be a big explosion.
Yeah.
At least big enough for Mordor.
True.
Yeah. I do have to take a break before the other show.
We can go ahead and end it here because we finished the article and we've kind of commented on everything as we went. So unless you guys have any last minute things to say.
I mean, I don't have any hopes of this ever going to become good, but who knows?
Translation Sage is excited for the season 2 and cannot wait to watch it over and over and over and record every ounce of that for multiple times just so we have proof of it.
Yeah. So basically, just in my final conclusion, this is more of what I call nostalgia bait that they're dragging people in with to try to sucker you into liking this.
Yeah. I've always wanted to
see Tom Bombadil and Anatar. We listened to all you bookwiners. We've got him in there. Now you got to watch it.
Except Tom Bombadil wasn't around.
He was around. He was just not.
Well, no, I'm saying. Let me finish.
He was always around.
He's not around the action that's going on with Anatar. That's what I was trying to say. But you had to just jump in there, on my grill. Thank you. But yeah, I've always wanted to see Tom Bombadil, but I'd rather see him in Peter Jackson stuff than I would in this.
I want to see Anatar and Tom Bombadil have a kung fu fight in this show. That's what.
Yeah,
I want to see him. I want to see him portrayed like Battle from Middle Earth does.
If that happens.
I think it's Battle from Middle Earth 2, or is he in Battle from Middle Earth 1 as well? I don't remember.
Like, Anatar's walking up on like Galadriel, killing the Bombadil hops in like. Stop right there,
Hadouken!
You shall not pass.
Hadouken! But no, like in Battle from Middle Earth, you can like get Bombadil either in the first one or the second one. I think it's the second one. You can get Tom Bombadil as like a summon, like the Balrog or the Army of the Dead or something, and he just kind of like dances in a circle and he's like backhanding things, killing entire groups of armies. It's singing, and you hear the music playing and everything. It's actually rather interesting and funny. I could see that happening, but that's more realistic than what they're going to pull out. So we'll see. But yeah, we'll go ahead and end there, guys. Once again, thanks for hanging out with us. If you could like, comment, share, all that fun stuff. We appreciate your support. We actually did a short video for once. Or a short, longer video for once. But yeah, it's about a minute. It's about an hour and 10 minutes or so. We're not 1.5. We're an hour and 10.
Don't get used to it.
Yeah, don't get used to it. We are long form content probably for life. Long form for life, yo. But yeah, thanks everybody for hanging out. Matt, you got anything going on next week?
I'll be on Roman the Empire show. So
that just won't be out by then. So
when you see this tomorrow, right? You can go see the
Yeah, this won't be
pre-recorded
tomorrow.
Roman Empire show from Thursday. I'll be on.
This won't be out tomorrow. This will be out Sunday.
We'll see this on Sunday. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be on stuff because it's just
Do you write in your YouTube community stuff or anything?
I usually
Like, let people know
respond to
again?
comments like when people comment on my videos.
Uh-huh.
Beyond that,
I didn't know if you write a community thing, so people who follow you on your. By the way, you want to plug your channel? Since I don't know if anybody remembers.
My channel is Unbearable73.
There you go. It'll be in the video link at some point. But yes. And Sage doesn't have anything because he's a loser.
Yep.
One of these days we're gonna make him a full-time employee.
Wow.
He'll be doing all the physics stuff on all the nerd stuff. It's like, that's not realistic. You don't have explosions in space. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
Actually, if anything, Matt, I
mean,
think
you do have explosions, but they just don't make sound. So
they're like. If anything, Matt, I think we should let Sage take on the acolyte by himself, and he can just spit all over it.
No, I'm good.
I am unfortunately, I am being forced to review the acolyte on Roman Empire's show because he is going to make us review that piece of crap.
Damn.
I am torn if I want to cover it or not because I think Star Wars is dead, but I also think they're going to butcher it so bad it might actually be good comedy gold.
Well, I'm only covering it because of Roman's show. What I'm actually reviewing right now, I just dropped the review for the 1953 Horatio Hornblower movie. I'll be doing the 2000 Horatio Hornblower series. I'll be continuing with my review of Sharp, the TV series. I'll be dropping a review for a movie called Greyhound, which is a 220.
You watch a lot of things. Yeah. I wish I had your free time.
Well, I mean, look, what else, I'm disabled at home. What else do I have to do? I can't do man on the street blogs. It's like man in the apartment blog. Today I looked at the West Wall for 2 hours. It's like
the biggest elite.
Yeah.
But yeah. Yeah, I guess you got that with Roman going on, and you got nothing going on Sage.
Sage does nothing. He's not allowed to do. See, it's been banned in Europe for Sage to be able to do anything, because it will violate the rights of indigenous peoples.
I'm pretty sure. Well, let's not get ahead of ourselves. I think that if anything, Sage is probably the reason human rights violations exist. But
yeah.
Anyway,
Sage, you should broadcast your trial before the European Parliament for us. So it'll be good YouTube.
Sure, I'll do that once.
We'll monetize the snot out of it. Not like anybody would care, but we'll monetize it either way.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, when I get 1,000 subs, which is going to be 3-4 years, maybe longer, maybe 10, more realistically. But anyway,
maybe one day.
Yeah. Anyway, thanks everybody for hanging out. We'll come back with another video at some point, and we'll probably, hopefully, when we have more time, we can pick up the Tolkien Society train wreck that is existent.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, we're looking forward to that. But yeah, thanks everybody. We'll see you around next time, and remember, walk in the light, my friends.
Farewell.